Hey everyone, I'm Kim and welcome to Crime Stats Daily. This is the channel where we go beyond the headlines to examine the facts, the statistics, and the stories behind crime in America. Today's episode, why some crimes are never reported. So let's get started. So every day across America, someone becomes a victim of a crime. Some victims immediately call the police. Others never tell anyone. Those decisions matter more than most people realize. When a crime is never reported, it often never becomes part of the official crime statistics. So, how do researchers estimate crimes that never appear in police records? And why do millions of victims choose not to report what happened? Today, we're looking at America's hidden crime problem, the crimes that are never reported. Many people assume that official crime statistics include every crime committed, and they do not. The FBI's crime statistics are based primarily on crimes that become known to law enforcement through participating agencies, and not all of that data gets reported, as I've discussed in one of my earlier episodes. On top of this, if a victim never contacts police, that crime generally won't appear in those official numbers. That doesn't mean, of course, the crime never happened. It simply means it never entered the reporting system. And understanding that difference is a first step towards understanding crime statistics. To understand crime statistics, it helps to know who collects them. Local law enforcement agencies, of course, investigate crimes and submit data to the FBI. The FBI compiles those reports to help measure crime trends across the country. But another organization asks a different question. The Bureau of Justice Statistics sponsors the National Crime Victimization Survey, conducted by the U.S. Census Bureau. Instead of asking police what crimes they investigated, it asked people what crimes they experienced, even if they never reported them. These two systems work together to give us a much more complete picture. Now, the National Crime Victimization Survey, also known as NCVS, interviews a scientifically selected sample of households across the United States. Now, one word of note here. Why do researchers trust this, and what does that mean? The NCVS does not try to interview every American. Of course, that would be impossible. Instead, it uses the same scientific principles that allow researchers to estimate public opinion from a few thousand survey responses. When designed correctly, a representative probability sample can produce highly reliable national estimates without surveying hundreds of millions of people. Participants are interviewed every 6 months. They're asked about crimes they experienced and whether these crimes were reported to police or local law enforcement. Because the survey includes both reported and unreported victimizations, researchers can estimate the amount of crime that never appears in police records. Think of it like an iceberg. The crimes reported to police are visible above water. The crimes that go unreported remain invisible underneath the surface. The numbers help illustrate the size of this hidden problem. And according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics 2024 National Crime Victimization Survey, there were 23.3 violent victimizations per 1,000 people aged 12 and older. Of those, 11.2 per 1,000 were reported to police. That means a substantial share of violent victimizations were never reported. These statistics remind us that official crime reports only tell part of the story. Reporting crimes help investigators identify suspects, recognize crime patterns, and direct resources where they're needed the most. It also can connect separate cases that might otherwise appear unrelated. When crimes go unreported, investigators lose opportunities to identify repeat offenders, recognize emerging trends, and better understand what's happening in a community. Every report adds another piece to the picture. So, why do victims choose not to report crimes? And research shows there are many reasons for this. Some believe that the incident was a personal matter. Some think the police will not or cannot help. Others believe the crime wasn't important enough to report. And then there's fear, embarrassment, retaliation, trauma, or simply wanting to move on can also prevent victims from coming forward. Every situation is different, and every victim has their own reasons. Now, behind every statistic is a real person. Imagine someone who loses thousands of dollars to an online scam. And I've reported extensively on this in a previous episode about cyber scams and online scams. Embarrassed and convinced that nothing can be done, they never contact law enforcement. These are real crimes that are happening every day today. Their experience never becomes part of that national crime report. Stories like these help explain who or why surveys such as the National Crime Victimization Surveys are so important. They reveal crime that would otherwise remain invisible. Crime statistics should never be viewed in isolation. The FBI measures crime statistics known to law enforcement. The National Crime Victimization Survey measures crimes experienced by victims. Together, these sources provide a much more complete understanding of crime in America. So, looking at only one source can lead to incomplete conclusions. Not every crime is reported, and reporting is a choice. Official crime statistics measure reported crime, not every crime committed. Unreported crimes, of course, skew the data, making it harder to understand the numbers. The National Crime Victimization Survey helps estimate crimes that never reach law enforcement directly. And every report made to police contributes to a clearer understanding of crime and helps guide prevention and public safety efforts. Trust and support can change those numbers, but it does take time to build trust and support. The most important lesson from today's episode is this. No single data source tells us the whole story. The FBI and the National Crime Victimization Survey measures different aspects of crime. Together, they help researchers, policymakers, law enforcement, and the public better understand what's really happening. Knowing where the numbers come from help us interpret them more accurately. Now, before we go, remember that crime statistics are more than numbers. Behind every statistic is a person, a family, a community. Some victims report what happened and others never do. Understanding that difference doesn't just make us better informed, it reminds us that every number represents a human story. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Crime Stats Daily. If you found this episode helpful, please follow, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who values facts over assumptions and sensationalism. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Crime Stats Daily. Remember, statistics tells us what happened. Understanding tells us why it matters. I'm Kim. Until next time, stay informed, stay aware, and stay safe, and I'll see you in the next episode.